Generally, Saturn exalted in the first house is said to, in its Dasha, you ready for this? In its Dasha. And this is, I've meditated on this for probably the last 5 years, trying to really understand. It says, in its Dasha will make a person a millionaire. If they're already a millionaire, it'll make them a billionaire. That's kind of translated into our numbers these days. But exalted in the Lagna, it'll make the person a millionaire. If they're already a millionaire, they'll be a billionaire.
Even
if it's Marna Karkasthana.
Saturn.
Yeah, Saturn exalted in the Lagna. It's supposed to do it's Yoga Karaka exalted in the Lagna. And but don't forget the Ucha Bhanga rules, like retrograde and these other things that will cancel out that exaltation. Just because we're rich doesn't mean we're happy and enjoying it. So
okay.
So exaltation gives its results, Marna Karkasthana will give its results. Both will still be giving their results, and both are still possible. Yeah. So we see the 5 elements there. When we look at the 33 Devas, the 33 Devas are the fundamental aspects of Jyotish. We have the Ashtavasu, the 8 forms of light. And in that, we have the 5 elements. We have the sun, the moon, and the Nakshatras. They're the 8 forms of light.
Light?
Ashtavashu. The light-giving, the blessing-giving, the beneficial aspect. Astavasava of the 33 Devas. Have you ever heard or anything of the 33 Devas? Guruji gives a major... To him, it's the fundamentals of Jyotish. Most people cannot understand it for their life of them. I think you have to study Jyotish for at least 5 years before you can understand the 33 Devas.
Where is it? In what book is it?
It's online. He lectured on it maybe his first time in the States. So Lakshmi has recordings of it. It's considered fundamental, but you really have to know Jyotish in order to understand how it's fundamental. How does Indra relate to the 10th house? If you don't know what the 10th house is, how are you going to understand it? Yeah, so for us as Americans, we have to understand a little bit more before we can... Once we understand the general reality, then it's like, oh, so this is how it's all working. So it's not as fundamental as... It's foundational, but fundamental, it's not beginner. It's one of those foundations you go in after you understand the basics. But in that we have the 8 forms. And so we have sun, we have moon, we have the 5 elements, and then we have the nakshatras. And so those 5 elements give us the 5 planets. There. So those are 2 areas that we can really clearly see the separation with those 5 elements. Now, moon also is connected to the water element, and sun is also connected to the fire element, but they're not the primary rulers. Sun is fiery. It is. Moon is watery. It is. But when we talk about the 5 elements, we're talking about these 5 planets. Okay? Because now we're going to... I forgot to even write this. Let me just write that down a note. Show time. Okay. Time. Time is movement. And so when we look at the... actually, I'll explain that a little later. So an Ayurvedic doctor, when he looks at somebody, when he's trying to understand somebody, or she is trying to understand somebody, they're looking at the 5 elements in you. There's Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Vata, Pitta, Kapha relate to the 5 elements. I lean more towards a 5-element Ayurveda than I do a 3-dosha Ayurveda. But you're trying to understand what the elements are doing in the body. And by understanding how to balance them, you're reading the body, what's wrong with it, what's right with it, what it needs. In the same way, this universe is a manifestation of time and place. Place is that material manifestation. The Ayurvedic doctor is looking at the place. He's looking at your physical manifestation. At the same time, just as important as place is time. And just as place is made of the 5 elements, time is made of the 5 elements. The Panchāṅga is the 5 elements of time. Is it all beginning to make sense? Is the Panchāṅga these 5 limbs? All of a sudden it's like, aha. Just like the Ayurvedic doctor can look at the body and know what's going on with you based on the 5 elements in your body, we as Jyotishi should be able to look at time and know what is the quality of time by understanding what is going on with the elements of time. Okay? So, if you flip to the second page, first side of the second page, it lists fire, air, water, earth, and ether, and correlates them to the planets. And we see from fire we get Vara. Vara is the day. I should actually translate that, huh? Vara gives us the day. The air element gives us the Nakshatra. The water element gives us the Tithi. The earth element gives us the Karna. And the ether, or Kash element, gives us the Yoga. Those are the 5 aspects of the Panchāṅga related to the 5 elements. Now, the sun and the moon are not part of that. If we look at the Vara, if we look at the Nakshatra, if we look at the Tithi, Karna, Yoga, all these are being calculated based on the relative positions and movement of the sun and the moon. Correct? The Nakshatra is what sign the moon is in. The Tithi is how far away from the sun the moon is. The Yoga is how much what is the togetherness of the sun and the moon. The Karna is just part of the Tithi, which is based on the sun and the moon. The Vara is based on the month and it is the day, but what makes a day? A day is the motion of the sun, which, fits into the month. So it's a division of the month which is ruled by the sun, that it's the movement of the sun. Yeah. So we see that all these things are calculated by the sun and the moon. In the same way, that's how this, we can go back and forth between time and space. So the sun and the moon are making everything happen, even in space. In order for you to get something in this physical plane, the sun needs to give it to you. The sun needs to say, you're ready to have it. In order for you to keep it, the moon has to be ready to sustain it. Now what's coming to you, it might be ruled by one of the 5 elements. You might get something solid, ruled by the earth element. You might get something liquid. You might get whatever it is that's coming. It's connected to the 5 elements. But who's saying that you're getting it? It's the sun. Who's saying you're keeping it? It's the moon. Is everybody understanding the great importance of these fundamental concepts? And how just understanding the Panchāṅga, we're understanding everything. And how fundamentally important this Panchāṅga is. Okay. So, Pam and Mary, if you guys are going to be focused on Nakshatras, you're also going to be focusing on Panchāṅga. So, because Nakshatras are part of the Panchāṅga. And in order for us to understand what a Nakshatra is, we have to understand where it fits into the Panchāṅga. In order for us to understand the Tithi, we have to understand its relation to the others in the Panchāṅga. In this way, all aspects begin to interrelate in the material plane and the time plane. So when we look, I'll just go quickly over what each of these represent, and then we'll go into understanding how they represent it, why they represent it, how we use it. The Vara relates to Mars. Mars gives us health, vitality, strength, protection. Generally, Vara relates to the physical body. It's right there in the notes. If you pop to the second page, typed it out nicely for you. And it's in Visti's first chapter. I was going to use Visti's first chapter, but it didn't have enough. So the fundamentals, he didn't list enough of the fundamentals. He listed what the fundamentals were, but he didn't break it down enough, just like what we just did right now.
Yeah, I remember reading that and going, why is this so fundamental?
Exactly.
Why did he put this as the first chapter of the fundamental book?
Now do you see why it's fundamental?
Yeah, but when I read it, I thought...
Yeah.
No, it's great.
Okay. So yes, now we see why it's at the first chapter of the book, why it's so fundamental.
Yeah.
Because when we understand this, when we understand the elements, everything starts making sense. When we understand the gunas, everything starts making sense. So this is the first level of really understanding the elements.
Are the gunas more fundamental than the elements?
Ooh, you could say yes, but the elements are working more on the physical plane, and the gunas are working more on the mental plane. But the thing is, everything on the physical plane is affecting the mental plane. Everything on the mental plane is affecting the physical plane. But where are they primarily active? You primarily don't touch sattva. You touch earth, you touch water, you touch an element. You generally aren't thinking fiery. Your thoughts can be fiery, but they're more regarded as rajasic, tamasic, or sattvic. So we're working more from that. That's the easiest way to understand them. But their interaction is each element has, like fire can be rajasic, tamasic, or sattvic. Like if we look at the sun, it's fiery, but it's a sattvic fire. If we look at Mars, it's fiery, but it's a very tamasic fire. So in that same way, we can look at the gunas. All the elements are expressing themselves through the gunas. So you could say that the gunas are primary. And the mind does come before the physical body. First we were created in thought, then we were created in form. And so first a thought comes, and then we physically do it. So what we physically do is guided by the guna that is in our mind. So the gunas do take primary, but their interaction is constant. So we go to looking, so the vara, the day, it shows health, vitality, strength, protection. We look at the nakshatra, it's connected to air. It's connected to Saturn. Did anybody ever think about that before? Strange, huh? But it makes total sense once we understand everything. And then it'll clarify why we look at the nakshatra versus the Tithi. So have you ever looked at Pañcāṅga trying to pick a Muhurta and being like, well, I know what the nakshatra means, I don't know what the rest mean. That's the average. That's the average looking at the Pañcāṅga. People just take the nakshatra and forget about the rest. All five are there. But that shows... Say again?
Is there any significance that Saturn is connected to nakshatra?
Oh yeah, we'll go deep into it. Deep in the nakshatra section here. But particularly Vayu. Vayu gives us prana. So it shows the pranas in the body. It shows disease, it shows bodily ailments, it shows suffering and the opposite of suffering. It shows, whether we'll suffer or not. Saturn. Tithi is connected to the water element, to Venus. So it shows love, passion, desires, relationships. The karna. Anybody have any clue what the karna was?
Mm-hmm. It's half of a Tithi.
Yeah, but besides that, what the heck do you use it for? Yeah, exactly. Everybody just shrugs their shoulders.
We'll just ignore that one.
That's what I've talked to people that studied astrology 10, 20 years before they met Sanjay, and they're like, well, it was all in Parashara, but we just ignored it. Upapada rules, for example, they just totally ignored it. Well, I don't know what it is, so they just kept going without it.
I would read what my karana is, but I don't know what to do with it.
Exactly.
They tell you it, but they don't say how to apply it. But it's in Parashara.
Exactly. Well, this is more the fact that they exist. Parashara and all the sages tell us how to use them. No one ever really told anybody. Mm-hmm. This is something that was in Sanjay's tradition. In now our tradition. So.
Wait, what is it?
Karna. Karna's connected to the earth element.
Yeah.
Mercury rules the earth element. What's Mercury connected to in life? Business. That's right. So it's connected, 10th house significations in Mercury. So it's business, career, achievement, skills, things of this nature. So the karna is very important when we're looking at business Muhurta. Okay, we'll go into that.
So so when you see a chart and you see the...
We'll explain it.
Karma, okay.
We'll go in the karna section. We'll use them each, so you know how to use them. I'm just giving you a general overview so they go inside, and then we'll go deep into each one. We get it in there so it's digesting, and then we'll start throwing the flavor on top. And yogas, they're connected to the ether element, which is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter rules harmony. He rules connections. He also rules knowledge, things of that nature. So the yoga's connected to harmony, how things relate. The ether element. Okay, so let's go into Vara. So in general, if we're looking at Prashna, Mars rules the week. But in the Pañcāṅga, he rules the day. And the week is made of 7 days. And this is very fundamental, because let's flip to the other page here. We see this huge chart. Now this chart here is the horas, the hours of the day. Does anybody know what the order of the horas is based upon? Take a look, see if you can guess.
It starts from the...
Yeah, it starts, but the order of the planets, why? Why is it Saturn, then Jupiter, then Mars, then Sun, then Venus, then Mercury, then Moon? What's important in that order?
I think the distance from the Earth.
The distance from the Earth, as well as... But look how the Moon is really close to the Earth. You're really close to the answer. You're close. What does the distance from the Earth govern? How long it takes to go around the Sun.
A day.
Yeah.
The Sun takes a day.
Yeah, and the other planets. You're so close. Speed. How fast the planets are moving.
Mm.
So,
Saturn is faster
you were
than
close.
Jupiter?
Say again?
Saturn is
Slower. Slower
Slower.
than Jupiter.
So it starts the slowest and
Yeah.
works out. Okay, so Moon is the fastest.
Exactly. Moon is the fastest moving planet relative to our view. So do you see? So it's based on the speed of the planets. And so if we start Sunday with Sun, we'll see how this... If we can yeah. Let's just start let's start with Saturday. Some people might disagree, but Saturn is connected to Brahma. Brahma is the creator. So Saturday starts with Saturn. And then moves to Jupiter, Mars, Sun. And this is based on 6 a.m. sunrise, generally. This, changes via sunrise. Some people will use a standard 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., and it's possible. And there's many ways that we can use this. But if we just take, and each hour, run it through a different planet. With Saturday. The last, at 5 a.m. on Saturday, it's Mars Hora. What's the first Hora on the next day?
Sun.
What's the last Hora on Sunday?
Mercury.
And what's the first Hora on Monday?
Moon.
What comes after Mercury?
Moon.
What's the last Hora on Monday? What comes after Jupiter?
Mars.
So do you see how the days of the week are where this comes up with which planet in which orders is? Why is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? Why is it this order? Do you see how that's calculated? Is everybody getting that?
So the hours according to the speed of the planet are continuous.
Yeah, it keeps going. The Hora never breaks. The Horas keep going. And the first Hora of every day is connected. The first Hora of the day is the planet that rules the day. In the same way, the first day of the month rules the month. The first, in this way.
It's surprising that in the Eastern and Western, the day sequence is the same.
Oh, because it was the same in all of Europe and in Mesopotamia and Egypt and all these places. It's the same.
Amazing.
Yeah. Most places don't know why though.
Yeah.
Most people, some places don't even, some people even, how many people know that their days of the week connect to the planets? Even though they're saying Sunday and Monday and Saturn day, or in French, lundi, mardi, mercredi.
3D.
It's just like, it's vendredi.
Well, I thought
Venus.
Friday
Comes from Freya.
Roman name.
Yeah, Freya, it's the Norse goddess. Freya is connected to Venus.
You mean in all the cultures it's this order?
Yes,
Yeah.
Amazing.
yes,
Wow.
yeah.
You mean in every culture?
And in
Yes.
every culture, the days of the week relate to those planets.
Yeah.
Like Freya is Friday, she's Freya's Venus, and Thor is the god with lightning. The Adi Devata of Jupiter is Indra.
What about Wednesday?
Thor's day. Wednesday, I think it's another Norse god, and Tuesday it's Germanic, the German god of war, Tue.
Oh.
So, and I think in German they actually for Wednesday it's middle of the weekday. Who's the middle? Who's the mixed taste? It's Mercury. So everything. Saturday is son of the sun day.
And Saturn.
it's really incredible.
Saturn is a Roman, or more of a Roman word, isn't it? Saturn?
I guess so. Is it Rome?
They're all German
Saturnalia.
except Saturn.
Saturnalia.
It's Roman. It's Greek or it's Latin or Greek.
Chronos would be Greek.
Okay,
So I think it's.
then
But they
Latin.
only kept one of Latin and all the others are Germanic.
We're talking English here. And if you know much about the evolution of English, we were a bunch of tribal people conquering so-and-so, them conquering us conquering them, going back and forth. And as you conquered, the languages would mix and this and that. It all evolved, English basically from Latin, but if you look what happened to it. It spread all over. It was very tribal and no sequential, conscious evolution of our language. Where Sanskrit it's very conscious. It's going by the rules, and English is not. So it's, we're mixed from all these different European traditions. Yeah. So we see the horas, and the horas can be used similar to the varas. For example, let's say you have to go. Let's go back to the varas. We'll talk about both. If we want to, when we use the varas. The vara, because it relates to fire, Mars. It's the day that something will have strength. So if we look at if you want to go for a job, if you want to apply for a job, we want to make sure that the 10th Lord is strong. Correct? The 10th Lord needs to be strong when we apply for a job. So we go on the day of the 10th Lord, because that's when the 10th Lord is going to be strong, the day of the 10th Lord. If you want to ask someone on a date, or you want to ask someone to marry you and you're not sure if they'll say yes, ask them on the day of the 7th Lord. If you want to buy a home, go for the day of the 4th Lord. You want to apply for university, the day of the 5th Lord.
Doesn't matter if it's malefic or benefic?
No. Because your 10th Lord is malefic, it's malefic. It'll be good your 10th Lord will be good for 10th Lord related things, no matter whether it's benefic or malefic. How it goes about it's another story, but the fact is, it's still that Lord, and you want that Lord to be strong. Because that Lord will take care of its house. Everything making sense here? So we understand how in Muhurta to use the Vara.
Can we also use the hora of that 10th Lord?
And the Hora. So let's say your 10th Lord is Saturday, and you got to apply for the job, but, it's not open on Saturdays.
Exactly.
Exactly. So we use the Hora of Saturn.
Because most of I have the same
Yeah.
Saturday.
So we use the Hora of Saturn instead.
So there is something also Rahu Kal on the day actually, and you're not supposed to do anything. I don't know whether it's applied.
That's a different system.
Oh, okay.
That's not Hora. That's more Kalas.
Okay.
It's Rahu Kalam.
Okay.
Right? And we can remind me when we do Tithi Vara interaction. Okay.
So when do we use the Lord and when do we use the Karka for it?
When do we use
The Karka?
for Vara?
No car, general car.
Yeah, generally,
Karka for what?
like say for job.
Okay.
Do we go with the 10th Lord or we go with the Karaka for
10th
the,
Lord.
for the job? Why
10th
not for
Lord.
the Karaka?
Why for the Karaka? The Karaka needs to be strong to allow the situation to even happen. Whether the situation, whether you have a, we'll just take it to Aruda Lagna. If the Lord of the Aruda is exalted, then the person will be famous. If it's debilitated, the person will have influence. People won't like them. People, no one will know them. It's based on the Lord, whether they get it or not. Okay? The Karaka for the Aruda Lagna is the moon. So if the moon is hurt, then the person has a problem with social interaction in general. We have to use both. But the main thing that's going to make them famous is the Lord of the Aruda Lagna. Both need to be strong. We need to support the moon. And how do we support the moon? We support it with mantras, pearls, things of that nature, upayas to the moon. Then we go and we make the Lord of the Aruda strong. So in the same way, if we want the career to be strong, if we want a good career, we want the Lord of the 10th house to be exalted. We want it to be strong and have strength. Look how many karakas are there. There's 4 main karakas for the 10th house. You want them all. If you want to be recognized and get recognition in your job, you want the sun to be strong. If you're not getting enough, recognition, you wear a ruby or do, some type of sun strengthening. If your skills aren't matching the job, you might lose a job. Strengthen your Mercury, the karaka, in that way.
Do you strengthen that planet if it's a Badaka? Like say the sun is a Badaka?
You remove the badak and then it's possible to strengthen.
And then strengthen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You have to appease the planet first, which in appeasing it, you'll strengthen it at the same time.
Okay.
Because the planets are deities, as we learned how to see which deities they are showing. And so a badak is the anger of that deity. So if we make that deity happy, how much stronger will that planet be? Okay. Badak is showing the anger of that deity. It's okay. Makes sense. So are you understanding the?
Yeah.
Okay. So we want to go on the Lord. For Karaka, we strengthen, but we don't strengthen. It's not about the Vara. We're not trying to get the fire to it. We're not trying to, in that. So we use the Lord. Okay. That's, everybody understand that.
So
yeah.
One thing I'm trying to figure out is why Venus comes after Sun, and why in this order actually? You said the speed. So
the speed.
So
somebody want to explain?
See, moon is moving faster
I'm
than
gonna use the bathroom.
Mercury.
okay,
And
Mercury is moving faster
Venus
than
is
Venus.
faster than Mercury. Mars is even faster than Venus.
No, slower.
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 Sorry, Venus is slower than Mars. And Jupiter is faster than Mars. And Saturn is faster than Jupiter.
No,
Sorry, slower. I'm using the reverse tense. Slower.
Saturn's the slowest, and
See,
Jupiter.
the distance from Saturn is the longest.
That's right. The Saturn is
So
is the
he's
slowest,
in the
right.
slowest panel. Then
Yeah.
Jupiter,
Faster.
right.
Then Jupiter.
then Mars,
Yeah.
then Venus,
Faster.
and then
But-
Moon.
Slower.
So the
So
Sun
when
comes
we-
in between. So between Mars and Venus, the Sun is there actually.
This
Yeah,
is all,
that's right.
this is all from the vantage point of the Earth, right? From standing on the
From
Earth.
from the Earth.
Yes.
So
That's
from
why-
the Earth, Saturn is the slowest because
So he's
Yeah.
Takes the longest to go around.
right.
Yes.
So you take Saturn here. You take the 5 p.m. on first row, and then you see Saturn. You see that,
Mm-hmm.
and after Saturn comes Jupiter, which is closer,
Right.
and then Mars, and then Sun, and then Venus. They are all coming closer and closer, right?
Because we're talking about the position of how it looks from the Earth,
Okay.
right?
The most closest is Moon.
Now, what I find quite interesting with this is the biblical story of the creation in 6 days and then resting on Saturday.
Sunday.
Sunday.
The traditional interpretation of the Old Testament is that it was Saturday. And Jesus himself celebrated on Saturday, and then they taught, his teachings on Sunday. And so the Roman Church changed it to Sunday, but it was originally Saturday.
Oh,
Like the Jewish.
Yeah, well, it was, it's a Jewish story.
I know.
Yeah.
it was Jewish.
But there was no such thing as Jewish back then. It was Israelite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's an Israelite myth, and many, religious people I don't want to argue with, but if we really look scholarly at the Old Testament, the Israelites were tribal people as well, and they were traveling around, and they worked for the Babylonians for a long period of time. They, their origin says they came out of the Sumerian civilization. So many of their myths are found in other cultures. In Assyrian texts, the same stories that are in the Old Testament, the Assyrians say it's their background. So if you really do some historical research on the Old Testament, so many of their stories are just very traditional stories of the Sumerian Babylonian time period. And as we all know, Sumerians and Babylonians were very intense astrologers. Very intense astrologers. Incredible. Has anybody seen some of the what's the first ever cuneiform?
cylinder rolls.
In the Berkeley Library, they have pictures of cuneiform astrological charts. Charts, circle charts, with the planets written down in cuneiform. So if they were doing it then, once they finally were making it in the clay, how long were they doing it before that, before they even decided to put it in the clay? Very intense astrologers. And with observatories and all that. So many of these myths come from their culture. And the whole Saturn being the slowest planet, and, that first Saturn day starting. From the more Hindu perspective, it's all about the sun. So Sunday is the first day as well. But in the more Sumerian, Babylonian, Israelite religions, they were very agriculturally based systems. And the main agricultural deity is Saturn. And so most of those religions were very into Saturn worship and appeasement of Saturn.
Why isn't Mars the main agricultural deity? Because it's the Earth. Mars rather.
He rules the earth, but who's out there in the field working,
Oh, right.
making it all grow? Who's digging in the dirt, getting their hands dirty? Yeah. That's Saturn. So Saturn's actually out there farming.
Okay.
He's farming in Mars. And that's, if we look, Mars gets exalted in a Saturn sign, but Saturn is debilitated in a Mars sign.
Where's that?
There's many reasons. It's way too complex to go into, especially when we're focused on Var. But if you just look in nature, look out there. Look who's working who. The Earth is there, and who's growing? Saturn's out there working the Earth. Saturn's debilitated. The Earth grows. If we look at Sanjay explains it. His simple way to real quickly explain it is Mars is machines, new things. Saturn is the old way of doing things by hand. And Mars is always, removing and making things better. And we think all of a sudden we have like this new technology now, but just the invention of the wheel removes so many Saturnian, you have to, how many people would you need to carry somebody to get from one place to another? A lot of Saturn people, a lot of servants. All of a sudden they invented the wheel and you could just yoke up a horse and pull. Before you couldn't have a horse pull a palanquin. It wasn't possible. So Mars has always been removed. Okay.
Problem solving.
Depends, yeah.
One thing I haven't understood is, we have all these planets and we have all these deities and all these stories behind it.
Uh-huh.
What about the Earth? The Earth is also just another planet like that. So what's...
The Earth is many different aspects of the Earth. We have the Bhumi Mata. And if you look at Sita, where was Sita born from? She was born from the Earth. So there are many different aspects, and there's ways, when we look at the Earth, we begin working with Vastu. And you get into the science of Vastu, and you get into the lords of the directions. And the lords of the directions are connected to the earth primarily, because they're the directions that we are in earth. So, and so the earth is integrated in many ways.
Actually,
it's
the
not
influence of all these planets on the earth.
Oh,
That's
that's
why
right.
we're
Yeah.
counting it.
Yeah, and if you look at primarily the Varaha avatar is connected to he who raised the earth out of the water. And Varaha avatar is Rahu. It's the desire that caused you to be born. So we're coming here because the earth plane, we're here because of our desires. So we were born here in physical bodies, because this is the planet that we come for, physical bodies. According to the Vedic philosophy, every planet is totally populated with various beings. But this is the planet where we need to take on physical forms. So it's that Rahu, that Varaha avatar, that, that desire for physical form that made us here in physical form. So it's used, but you generally, it's present and understood. Often, when astrologically do we need to worship the earth? It's not, everything is affecting the earth from our perspective. When we get into more earth remedies, we're going into Vastu and things of that nature.
I understand his point that we're looking at the effect of all the planets on the earth, but wouldn't we understand the earth better if we step aside from the earth and look at what's the deities that rules the earth and what are the attributes?
No, because the thing is, that's a very Western. Who was the guy who said that the human body is like a machine? Descartes. Descartes. It's very, Descartes philosophy that you can take it all as a machine, and we're a machine sitting here, and the earth is another bio machine, and we're walking on the bio machine. The thing is, the moon, as it moves, it's changing the tides of the ocean, it's changing the tides of the blood and moving in you, it's changing your hormones, it's changing your thoughts.
I didn't mean to be
So we are the earth. You are the earth. For you thinking that you're separate from the earth, it's really like the planets are affecting the earth and us at the same time, because we are made of this earth plane and the 5 elements on the earth. And those planets, now we're going to get back into Panchāṅga, this is my way. So those 5 planets are moving the gunas and the 5 elements on the earth. And it's changing the earth, it's causing earthquakes in our life. So the quality of time and the quality of space is being affected by how these 5 elements are moving. The 5 elements are being affected by how the planets are moving. So what's happening to the earth, what's happening to us, there's no difference. We're in a total, to say that we're in a relationship would be duality. Because we just bubbled up from the earth, and we are part of the earth, and we're being affected just like the earth is being affected. Was that?
Yeah.
So we can't stand aside and look at it separately, because it's so not separate. It's just it's not possible from a holistic perspective. And the rishis were so holistic. Okay, so we see how the days are being calculated through the horas, which are totally connected to the planets. And we understand the Vara. Now, how do we use the Vara in our natal chart? Anybody know?
We look at the Lord of the Vara and see where it is in our natal chart. And
Okay.
that'll show us about our health.
What about our health?
If it's what house it's in, if it's strong.
But what about our health? How's it different than Nakshatra and all these other ones?
Well, the Nakshatras ruled by, it has to do with the moon.
Vayu, prana. No, it has to do with Saturn. He affects health as well.
See what you say.
So let's say my Vara Lord is weak. What is the result? Now don't look at what I said. I'm going to say it all.
Your Vara
I typed this so you can go home and
Is
study
that the hour
correctly.
you were born? Is that what you're saying?
Vara, the day. Vara means day.
The day.
Vara is day.
Okay, the day you were born.
Yeah. So you look at the day. So I was born on a Saturday. So we go to my chart and we look at Saturn. Now, if Saturn was debilitated, what would that mean for me?
It would affect your health.
How? What about my health?
You have low energy.
Okay. That's the main thing. Low energy, low vitality, lack of strength.
Yeah, I have the same thing.
Yeah. Saturn. You were born on Saturday.
Yeah, it's in the 6th house, so I
The
try
sixth
to
house.
make it work hard. I want it to be strong. But I have to.
Saturn is not bad in the 6th house at all.
No.
He's actually couldn't be better anywhere else.
So
Look at what he's aspecting.
the 12th.
He's aspecting the 12th with the 7th aspect. He's aspecting the 8th house, and he's aspecting the 3rd house. So he's destroying, wherever he's looking, he's breaking. So he looks over at the 8th house. He says, you have debts, I'll destroy them. He looks at your 12th house. He says, oh, these are losses and taxes, I'll destroy them. He looks at your 3rd house, and he looks at your bad problems there, and he says, I'll destroy them. So there's no better place for Saturn.
So
Yeah. It's called, Sanjay calls it Amrita Drishti of Saturn when he's in the 6th. Because he makes everything good because he destroys all your problems. He destroys the 6th house as well. So it's not bad. So
you wouldn't say that the energy would necessarily be so low?
No, it's definitely not low. It's definitely all kinds of, you're doing everything to make your energy good. You're eating all kinds of things, you're taking probably all kinds of supplements. Anything where the prana's leaking out, you're fixing. Now, when we're looking at someone's chart, let's say you pick up someone's chart, and like sometimes we look at a chart, and everything looks okay. So where do we start? Look at the Pañcāṅga real fast. What day were they born? How's that day lord placed? If that day lord is not strong, then you might want to start with health. If it's strong, then health is not going to be the big thing on the menu for that reading. It might be on the menu, but it definitely won't be the main course. Unless this is just a quick way when you look at a chart to know where do I need to start focusing.
Are you going to talk a little bit about what constitutes a strong or weak planet?
Really basics, huh?
No, but I mean, do you look at
Yeah.
is it the Shadban, is it the, because you don't...
You look at everything.
Okay.
Sometimes they're strong in some ways, weak in other ways. Maybe next week we'll go into that. Okay. Who's our Graha person?
Oh, that was, he's not here.
Ajit.
It was,
Ajit.
Ajit, yeah.
Ajit.
It's
Okay.
in Mexico.
He's in New Mexico. So we'll have to get him to bring some research in next week so it can be more of an interaction for how to tell if a planet's strong. But for the moment, use dignities and use house placements.
Okay.
They're the first thing you're going to look at.
Okay.
And particularly for Vara, use Marna Karkasthana. Do you know Marna Karkasthana? Everybody know Marna Karkasthana? No. Saturn, Marna Karkasthana means it feels like it's dying. The planet is dying. So this is very important for health-related things. So for Vara, we'll use this. When we move into some other things, it won't be as important. But for Vara, it is. And so Saturn in the 1st, Jupiter in the 3rd, Ketu in the 2nd, Mercury in the 4th,
Venus in the 6th,
Mercury and Mars in the 7th.
Yeah, 7th, isn't it?
Mercury in the 4th, I think.
Mercury in the 4th is Marna Karkasthana for Gemini. Mercury in the 7th is Marna Karkasthana for Virgo.
I think Jevora software always tells.
Write it down.
Can you repeat it again?
Mercury in the 4th is Marna Karkasthana for Gemini. Mercury in the 7th is Marna Karkasthana for Virgo. Mercury is quite changeable.
Fourth and what Gemini?
That's for Virgo ascendant or Gemini ascendant?
No. For that sign. So if it's in the 4th, then that means that Gemini is going to be Marna Karkasthana. Gemini is going to be suffering. And if
So
it's in the 7th house, then it means Virgo is going to be suffering as well. But it'll be suffering relative, that planet will be suffering, but relative to the significations of that house.
So for Gemini, it's exalted in the 4th, and for the
Pañcāṅga.
Virgo, it's debilitated in the 7th. So it's, you see what I'm saying?
Exalted. How's that exalted in the
Gemini's
4th?
exalted in the, Mercury's exalted in the 4th.
For
For
Gemini.
Gemini.
It's exalted in...
Virgo.
4th?
And it's Pañcāṅga.
Yeah, for Geminis.
Yes, and it's Pañcāṅga Yoga too. So it's all these great things.
Remember what she was saying about the Panchamahaprusha Yoga for Saturn.
Second.
Person can still be rich. It doesn't mean that they're like, certain aspects of their life aren't dying. I have that same combination. I'm a Gemini Lagna with Bhadra Mahapurusha Yoga in the 4th house. And put me in a straight classroom. I was just telling Kathy, I finished college in 2.5 years. You could say, Bhadra Mahapurusha Yoga, he can get a BA in 2.5 years. The reason I got it in 2.5 years is because I hated school so much that I took as many classes as I could to get the credits to get out of there. I had to get out as soon as possible.
But how does that make your Mercury?
I was suffering. If I stayed an extra year, I would have died.
So if the Mercury's somewhere else, you'd be enjoying school.
Exactly.
Loving learning.
Exactly. So do you see how it's... So Muhurta, it's not all the time. It's only when it becomes active.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out, because my partner has the same thing, and he just avoided school. He never got an education.
That's right. He's Bhadra Mahapurusha Yoga should be incredibly smart. In any other house, it'll be great. And he is smart. But just don't put him in a school, like a straight school setting. Give him a bunch of books. He'll read this whole bookshelf and understand it better than somebody who went through university and studied it.
Speaks 6 languages.
That's right. So so do you see how that Muhurta? Okay.
But for the rest of it's just 7.
It's
Virgo.
for Virgo related things. It's the 7th.
What about Aries?
Aries. Okay, so Mars is the 7th.
For Aries, Mercury is in the 7th. For Libra, for example. Is that in Pañcāṅga or not?
So it's in the 7th.
For Aries level.
Whenever it's in the 7th, it's Muhurta.
Mercury.
Yeah. But it's going to have...
These are exceptions. These 2.
Only Mercury. Mercury is the funny guy.
Moon
Moon 8th. Mars is in the 7th. Venus is in the 6th. 6th house is celibacy. You throw the planet of love into the house of celibacy, it feels like it's dying. Make a lover celibate, what are they going to feel like? Mars is the planet of celibacy. Throw them in the 7th house of love. Make a celibate, get married. They're going to suffer. It's just, did we get them all?
Sun in 12.
Sun in the 12th.
Jupiter in the 3rd.
Jupiter in the 3rd.
Rahu in the 9th.
Rahu in the 9th. That's a very important one. Very important. Especially if you ever take a student. Yeah. The person, it's the teacher, so if they'll resist, they'll doubt, the knowledge, they'll, yeah.
Oh, down. Why K2 in the 2nd?
It's gains, wealth, growing.
No wonder I'm not rich.
Yeah. Thing is, K2 is the planet that wants to be a sannyasin. And that's the house of being rich. You don't put put the sannyasin as your finance manager. He has to sit there and do bills all day long. He wants to be out meditating in the mountains. It's just doesn't work. Yeah. Okay. So for Vara, that's also, but with dignity and house placement and Marna Karkasthana for Vara become very important. Okay. So I think that's the main aspect of Vara, the fire element. Now we go to Nakshatra. And everybody knows Nakshatras in here, right? Okay.
We were talking about in the car how little we knew about Nakshatras.
Really?
Yeah.
Sanjay keeps saying, write a book on Nakshatras, write a book on Nakshatras. It's like, Guruji, I don't want to. I want to write on Arudas, So for 3 years it went on like that. I just want to write about Arudas. I don't want to write about Nakshatras. So finally this past winter, last fall, a year from now, I said, what am I fighting? If he says I should write on Nakshatras, I should just write on Nakshatras. I copied all kinds of texts, sat down, I wrote about a few deities, to start really everything that he's taught, putting together, which will take 2-3 years, just fully focused. And I said, Guruji, I'm starting to write on nakshatras. You know, I like fully surrendered, you know, whatever, you know, you say so, I'll do it. He said, you know, you should finish up your Aruda stuff first. You might really get on that. I was like, finally I have his blessing. So.
Can we have your nakshatra notes?
Oh, so many. They're so disorganized. They're everywhere. Guruji doesn't, you know, as I said, I'm very structured. He'll teach about, you know, one aspect of nakshatra, you know, next month he'll teach something else, then he'll teach, it's all mixed in. Yeah, it's all over. I have, you know, 4 years of notes with stuff all over and just...
It would be great to have you write it because so many nakshatra books are so surface.
They
just kind of briefly just talk about
well, the big thing that when I go into nakshatras is I'm going to go into nakshatra chakras. You know, like Sarvatabhadra chakra, Kala chakra, going into, you know, because like, you know, going into, because it's really all, you know, the movement of prana, and the movement of prana we use chakras to really see. Because why prana? Why the movement of prana? It's connected to Saturn, it's the air element. Air is vayus. Another word for the 5 pranas in the body are the 5 vayus. Right, Mary? So now you see how the nakshatras are connected to the vayus. So they're very important for health. Very important for health. And how is it that they're so connected to the mind now? How's the mind connected to health?
Because then we go to the nakshatra, right?
But how? What's the fundamental, what's the root understanding? What's the principle behind it?
The moon is related to mom, is that right?
The mind. How's the mind affect health?
Well, what you think is what you are.
Exactly. Where the mind is going, what the mind is revolving on, affects us in our health. If we're worried, we get sick. Where the mind is going. So, where the mind is going. Where does the mind go? The mind goes where concentration goes. Prana goes where the concentration goes. So, where the mind goes, the prana and the focus goes. Where the prana goes is what happens. The mind and the prana, you can't separate them. In yoga, it's a very important fundamental principle that if somebody says they can go into samadhi, you should be able to test. You know how you test if someone's in samadhi? Anybody know? You know, Kathy, from Baba Haridas?
Does that have to do with the breath?
Yeah.
Your breath would stop?
Your breath stops. If you enter nirvikalpa samadhi, your thoughts stop. That's nirvikalpa. The definition of nirvikalpa samadhi is that your thoughts have totally stopped. If your thoughts have totally stopped, it means your breath and heart has also stopped. So when you hear about yogis who can stop their heart and stop their breathing, they've entered nirvikalpa samadhi. So when the thoughts stop, the breath stops. So there's a direct correlation to the vayu, the prana, and the mind. Very important to understand that. Now, one very important thing, and this is something I've never seen this anywhere. But Guruji, he just said, he just said to me, because he throws out, sometimes when he throws out little hints when you're working on things. He says, have you noticed the cycle of Saturn? How long does it take Saturn to go around the Earth?
29 years.
29 plus years. How long does it take the moon to go from full moon to full moon?
29 and a half days.
Direct link there.
29.
Okay. Yeah, so there's a very important link between the cycles of Saturn and the cycles of the moon. Which you can really go into. But, and why do we have 27 verse 28 nakshatras?
Abhijit is intercalary.
It's intercalary. Okay, so we have it takes 27.3217 days. It's right here, the number and under nakshatras. So that 27.32. So it's almost 333 to make it perfect. So Abhijit's that extra little bit. But when do we use which? Why is there both a 27 and a 28? If there's this 28, then why have a 27?
Well, does it have have something to do with the nakshatras being neatly divvied up into 3 groups of 9?
Okay. Divide them up into neatly or unneatly. When would you use which? When do you use 28 nakshatras?
Muhurta.
Any other guesses?
Did you use in Sarvabhadra chakra?
Sarvabhadra chakra uses 28. Kala chakra uses 28. Navtara chakra uses 27.
Which one?
Navtara chakra.
No.
Because it's 999, 27. So in the Shastra, they're using both. There's proof. Some people say that they use 28, and then the Greeks came with their 12 signs and they changed it. But then they're using both. We have chakras where they're using both. Parashara gives us both, teaches about Kala chakra. He also teaches about Navtara. He's teaching both.
So why use one or the other? Is it related to like the car scheme where one's animate or living objects?
Good thinking. It's good. 28, when we use 28, we're using Abhijit. Abhijit relates to Hari, to the higher form of God. How I define Hari is Hara means Shiva. Hare is Shiva, it's the feminine of Shiva. When we say Hare, it's Radha. Radha is an incarnation of Shiva. I saw you wrong. Hare Krishna. Hare. Radha's Hare. Shiva is in the feminine. Shiva is Hara. When we have Hari, some people say it's Vishnu, some people say it's Shiva. So which is it?
As far as I know, it's used for Vishnu.
You go to Omkareshwar. They say Hari Om for Shiva.
Would it be that they're both? I mean, it's one and the same.
Who's Shiva meditating on all the time?
Vishnu.
So when he goes into Samadhi, what is Samadhi? Samadhi is absorption. So if Shiva goes into Samadhi on Vishnu, can you differentiate the two?
You can't.
No. To me, that's Hari. You know. So
You look in a
So
chart.
Hari is this very high spiritual concept, absorption in God absorbed in God. We are God, and God is everything present. The only time we get absorbed in God is when we let go of our own mind. Patanjali says that. Remove the thoughts that you're anything else, and you become the seer alone. You see your own true state. So when we have Hari there, it's for spiritual purposes. So the 28 nakshatras are used more for spiritual plane things. When we're using the 27, we're using very mundane. So that was good thinking, Gail. So always think along those lines. We have to, nothing's ever right or wrong. Guruji, I've never seen him sit there and say, I've never seen him ever call anything wrong. Everything in Western astrology, I've seen him, well, that's good. And he says, that's good when, and he totally utilizes it for some purpose. He sees what it's relative to, what it's connected, what's there, what's not there, what's it being calculated from. He totally understands the guna and tattva of it. And then says, this is, applicable in this situation. So it's all fundamental. And this understanding of how these Panchāṅga is working by looking at the tattva is just also getting our mind to think along a certain way so that we can understand everything. Okay? Because really in SJC, one of the things that you want to learn is not just how to look at a chart, but how to, if somebody shows a new concept or you pick up a book and you start reading it, and there's some concept that you've never heard of before, how do you understand it? You have to understand how to think, how to pick up and interpret by looking at the elements, looking at why, what is being calculated, how is it being used. It's a way that our mind should work. And in this way you can pick up Parashara and you can understand Parashara. I'll even show you some really strange techniques that Parashara is using. That if you can't start thinking along these lines of why and how and where, that you'll never be able to understand Parashara. But if you begin thinking along this line, differentiating like you are, well, in what situation and why, then everything in Parashara will become clear. You just need to train your mind to look at it the right way. So
I have a question about
okay.
Abhijit
Yeah.
being in Capricorn.
Okay.
And I was thinking, well, why would it be located there? And that's as far as I got, and I thought, well, Saturn, Mars. Is there any particular spiritual reason if it's a spiritual hari?
You know, you're looking at the solar zodiac when we're talking about the lunar zodiac. So when you want to look at where it is, and I don't want to go into it, but there's a whole, the nakshatras are a story in and of themselves.
Okay.
Moving from one to the next. It's a whole process of
So
evolution.
I wouldn't look at the
A
solar
whole creation of the universe is found in the nakshatras. If you look at the Uttar Falgunis, the Uttar and Purva and Uttara Falguni, they're a bed for making love in. You know, one is the front legs, one is the back legs. If you take directly opposite the Uttar and Purva Bhadra, it's a funeral cot, the front and back leg, directly opposite. It's the cot that you get burned on. One is the cot that you're creating, and one's the cot that you're being burned up and going back in. Directly. So when we're look, it's in. So don't worry too much about Capricorn. A lot of Western writings so far have been focused. They're like, oh well, you know, it's Barney is ruled by Venus and it's in a Mars sign, so it means this. But then that's you know, we can totally go into nakshatras alone. Because once we get into that plane, we're talking about that plane of reality. Okay. Because remember, it's the vayu, it's the movement of prana, it's the movement of life force. Okay. So, for looking at the natal chart, one way to use a nakshatra is to look at the Lord. And I always say use the Vimshotri Lord, which is very important because in the Vimshotri Dasha, there's a certain lording of the planets. If we go to a Ashtotri Dasha, they have different lords. Different dashas use different lords for the nakshatras. So those lords don't stay the same. They change. So it's very important to... so we can take that into the planet and we can see the health of the prana, how much prana there, how it's moving, and things of that nature. Same way we did the vara. But you see the difference between health level of vara and nakshatra. That's why I really had you clarify that. To look at the strength of a person, their general physical strength versus now we're on the level of prana. So we're looking much more of an energetic, how the prana is flowing through the body. Where is the prana moving? Where is the prana getting stuck? Because that's a different type of disease than just physical weakness of the body. Okay? So what else do we have here? So we see the deities connected with all of them. And I think I mentioned at some point that how important it was that, you know, the health, your pranic health with the deity of your nakshatra. And I used the example that Guruji, you know, he'll eat sandwiches made of white bread and drink coffee and drink cigarettes.
Drink cigarettes?
Smoke cigarettes and drink coffee. And white bread sandwiches, I can't even, like, you know, sometimes he's like, yeah, you win that. I just can't even, like, Indian white bread is worse than American white bread. Like, you know, some of these packages, it could have been sitting there for like 3 years and it has enough preservatives. And then it sat on some guy's cart and got dust on it so thick that, and then it comes to your house and it's like, you're going to make sandwiches with that. Like, the health quality of that is, you might as well use cardboard. But, you know, and then his health, you know, he gets low energy, so he sits down, does a nakshatra, you know, worships the Lord of his nakshatra, and he's all healthy and fine again. So,
it's a different level.
Different level. It's working on the pranic level. It's not working on the vara level.
Would that be the
You know, all this healthy stuff, it's working on the vara level. It's not working on the pranic level.
Would that be his moon nakshatra that he would work on?
The deity of the moon nakshatra. When we talk about nakshatras, we're talking primarily the moon's nakshatra. Lagna nakshatra is going to be important secondarily, and all the other planets' nakshatras are going to be important. But when we say, what is your nakshatra, we mean, what is your moon nakshatra?
So
And
like
so the
maybe-
deity of your moon nakshatra, if your, prana's not feeling good, weakness, debility, disease, it's always important to make sure that that deity's happy. If you've been getting colds and it's just, you just can't kick them, worship that lord of the nakshatra.
Under Mrigashira
It's a different type of Ayurveda, huh?
Oh, I love that. Is this Chandra Deva the moon? Or is that a different?
Soma, that's Soma. Soma is the moon. It's sometimes they say Soma, sometimes Chandra. Means the moon.
But you also consider the Visuddhi Dasha, the Lord of Nakshatra.
You look at that, yeah, in the Rashi.
Not only moons, but also the Visuddhi Dasha Nakshatra Lord.
To see the strength of the pranas, whether there's a problem or not with that, you look at the Vimshotri Lord in the Rashi. If you want to fix it, if there's a problem, this technique that when I say you're using the natal chart, that's when you look down at a chart and just, if you see that the Lord who's lording the nakshatra, Vimshotri Lord, is weak or debilitated in the chart, then you know that there's going to be some problems with the prana and disease. There'll be suffering in the life. Because Saturn is suffering. Remember, it's Vayu, it's also suffering. If that's weak, there'll be suffering. If it's strong, there won't be as much suffering. Because what is suffering? Somebody can be poor, somebody can be rich. Whether they're suffering or not, that doesn't matter whether they're poor or rich. Suffering is, it's a state of mind. And so it's based on the nakshatra. So the nakshatra is going to show that state of mind of suffering or not suffering, how you're perceiving your situation in the world. The Rashi is all about the situation in the world. The nakshatras are how we're perceiving that situation in the world. So from a Western perspective, they're only using that solar zodiac, which is okay. But in Vedic thought, we're really separating what's physically happening from how we're perceiving what's happening. Because even though Vedic thought teaches that there's only one perceiver, and all of us are that one perceiver is going through a filter that is our karmas. And the filter through our karmas is the nakshatra. Is that making you understand nakshatras a little bit better, Gail? Totally puts them into how do we use them, where do we use them? Where are they going to give the, what fruit, what fruit are they going to give? If we want to talk about how much someone's going to make, are we going to look at their nakshatras? We're going to look at the Rashi. If we're going to want to look at, why somebody wants to make money, we can look at that. Yeah. Okay.
Do you also consider, of course, the Antardasha and Mukti?
Oh, all that, everything is factored in. When I say look at it in the chart, I'm just talking about quick reference. Then you have to go and do the research. This is just, is it going to be an issue in the person's life or not? And then if it's yes, it's going to be an issue, then you go into that and you can be like, oh, well, you're healthy now, but, so many months ago you had this disease. Oh, you're healthy now, but it's going to let you, because why should you start going into that versus going into money versus going into business? How do you know where to go when you first pick up a chart? There's so much you can do. So this is kind of giving us a general idea of where there's going to be some recurring issues. Which elements are going to have some weakness. Because this is time. And this is the time that we're born. So when we look at it on an external plane, we're looking at what's going on in time. When we're looking at our natal chart, what's the time that we were born, thereby affecting the whole situation in our life. Yeah. Okay, so we're looking at that quality. And so if that element, that Pañcāṅga, that element of time is weak, then it's showing that element, that its attributes are going to give us troubles at some point in life. Throughout the life.
So basically, if we look at the basic the elements, so nakshatra we will look always from health perspective.
when we look at the Lord of it.
Lot of it.
Yeah.
And if somebody is
Health,
interested-
suffering, and things of that nature. What's going on with the prana? It's very much on the pranic level.
Yeah, but if somebody is interested to know about the money or the career or something, then we log into Karana and Karana launch and
If somebody sits down and says, I want you to focus on career, then you can take a quick look at Karna, make sure it's strong, and then go into, 10th house, 10th lord, the Karakas, and the Dashamsha. You don't got to worry too much about it. But if you
then
sit...
you won't consider Nakshatra that time.
You're not as much. A
Yeah.
little bit.
That was
You're going to look at the moon's nakshatra to see what their perception is. Because if we don't understand how they perceive the world, then how are we going to start talking to them about their business? So we take a quick moment. I've already taught this. I have a lecture on Natal chakra. And when we look at business relative, we're looking at the moon's nakshatra because we want to see how they perceive. What are they looking at in life? What's their perception of life? We look at the 10th from moon, and we look at that nakshatra also, if there is something there. And then we look at the navtara relative to the moon. But, but the thing is, you can use everything in any situation.
There was Gail, the Gurmeet, he always looks on Nakshatra, and there was a guy
Who does?
We had a study
The
meeting
study group,
Uh-huh.
when Gurmeet showed up
at Mukul's house,
at Mukul's house.
and he has the same chart as King Abdul of Jordan. So he was saying his nakshatra, and he was using nakshatras for all material and career gains and all. So that's what my question is. Like, do you really want to see nakshatras to look at career?
You can, but it should be secondary. If we're looking at mind, we're looking at nakshatra as primary, but we also got to look at the Rashi.
Yeah.
We always got to look at everything. And when you really get good, as I tell people, it's like, I'm teaching you 20 techniques, and for you to look at a chart and use all 20 techniques will take you 3 hours. Guruji looks at a chart, looks down at it, looks up, and he's used all 20 of those techniques. The more you use them, the faster you can use them. He looks down at a chart and says, you got Sankranti dosha, so it doesn't even... It's like, how did he even get to Sankranti dosha? Like, I was looking at where the planets were placed. So slowly, as we we use them all. Only as beginners do we separate them separately. Okay? So, but we have to know when we do start integrating them, what are we looking for at what level? Where is going to be the real focus of things? Because the moon is also your sustenance of things, and so it will show, what is sustaining things. But sustaining, it's at a pranic level. What is giving the life force to something? What is instilling it with prana? How are you instilling it with the prana to live? So we can use it for sustenance of the material world, but we got to understand what is a nakshatra so that we know how we're looking at it sustaining something in the material world.
Freedom?
Yeah.
If, the nakshatras ruled by K2,
Yeah.
would you say that they really...
The Vimshotri Lord is K2. I want to get to the point where we don't because a lot of books out there are putting a lot of emphasis on the Graha lording, and it's not as important as they make it.
Okay, so if the Vimshotri Lord is K2, would you say therefore the person's attitude towards career and sustenance?
No. That you're only looking for how their prana is really, you look at how K2 is placed in the chart, and that'll give you a general idea of the Vayu Tattva.
Okay.
Are you understanding that?
Yes.
So that's going to tell us how the Vayu Tattva is in the chart. We look at the Nakshatra Lord, the Nakshatra Vimshotri Lord in the Rashi, and that's going to tell us about the Vayu Tattva and things associated with Vayu Tattva.
Okay.
If we want to know, what was the question? If you wanted to know
talking
their
about
work, their career, then we go to the Lord of the Nakshatra.
The Lord of the Nakshatra.
Yeah, meaning for Chitra it's Vishwakarma.
Oh, right.
For Ashwini it's the Ashwin Kumar. How do the Ashwin Kumar relate? What is their, are they benefic to, career? What is their perception of the universe?
Mm-hmm.
Who are they? What are they?
So, for example, Ashwini Kumars, they're the healers.
Uh-huh.
So they want to sustain
They want
life
to sustain, they
and
want to
heal
heal,
life.
they're, yeah.
So that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
In that, for that.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
I see. 'Cause
And
I'm
so,
thinking of
and so
kids.
for them, you know, making money, you know, they're making money because they want to make the world a better place. They want to see everybody happy and healthy. They want to, you know, it's.
I see. Okay. I see.
So we get into the mindset of the Ashwini Kumar, and we see through them.
Okay, because I was thinking of K2, they wouldn't care, they'd be detached.
No,
Yeah,
no.
the deity.
Yeah. Oh, they don't. They care.
Yeah, they care, right?
Yeah, they were going.
If the lord of the nakshatra, the Vimshotri lords, aren't that important, what makes a nakshatra weak or strong?
What makes it weak or strong?
Yeah. How do you determine?
We're looking at the Vayu Tattva. You're talking relative to the Pañcāṅga. It's not making the nakshatra weak or strong. It's making the Vayu Tattva weak or strong.
The prana.
Yeah, straight Vayu Tattva. Prana comes from Vayu Tattva.
Okay.
You know, prana it grows. When Vayu Tattva is everywhere. When Vayu Tattva comes into us and makes us move, then it's prana.
Okay. So how do you determine what the relative strength and weakness of that?
Strength or
I mean,
weakness?
you're saying stuff like it's nakshatra if the Vayu Tattva is weak.
Yeah.
The Vayu Tattva
That we're using the Vimshotri Lord for the
then
Vayu
you do
Tattva.
use the Lord.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you would use the same rules for.
But where I said it's not as important is people are using the Lord to interpret what the nakshatra means.
Oh, I got you.
And I'm saying that that's not the prime. You should use the deity ruling it
I got you.
to see what it means and the qualities associated with it, not the Vimshotri Lord. Because what if the chart, it's better to use Ashtotri Dasha? Then the lordships change.
Okay.
So this is just to see the Vayu Tattva.
So if you have the Lord as opposed to the deity,
Okay.
the Lord of the nakshatra is exalted and
Uh-huh.
well placed and whatnot.
Then it means the pranas are very well controlled and you're using the pranas correctly, and that means the mind is focusing a lot more, easily directing things. And you know, it's do you look in the mirror and say, "Oh, I'm losing more hair. Oh my gosh, it's all falling out." Or do you say, "It doesn't look bad. You know, like I look good today." You know, and you go out like. Are you looking? You know, which way are you looking in the mirror? Which way are you looking at something? Are you saying, you know, that color kind of it doesn't match perfectly. Or, that's a pretty nice. You know, just it's.
The Lord will determine a lot how we perceive the world.
Yeah. How its strength or weakness
Uh-huh.
will be showing how that prana is moving, positive or negative directions, weak or strong.
Okay.
Weak prana leaks out. How does prana leak out? It's constantly going out through the sense organs and focusing on things that aren't beneficial for you. Strong prana, correctly controlled prana, you look at what's important, you look at it positively, and you do proper, you control the prana. Prana is controlled through the senses. The best way to conserve prana is pratyahara, taking meditation and turning the senses inwards. Okay, so it's all in that realm. And it can be weak and strong or anywhere in between. Okay, so we're ready to move the Tithi. So does that give you a good foundation to study nakshatras from? Yeah. So now you see why this is, and to study the days of the week from, to know what the days of the week are used for, and to know how important they are. And so why do I tell people, study the planet on that day of the week? That planet's strong on that day of the week. There's fire to that. There's you can ignite your understanding on that day. Okay, so Tithi. Tithi is the lunar day. And there's 30 Tithis. And the moon takes 29.5306 days to go from full moon to full moon. And we use it's 12 degree motion. So one Tithi is 12 degree motion of the moon. And the Tithi is gotten by subtracting the sun from the moon. Is that right? Is the moon from the sun or sun from the moon? Sun from the moon, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So we track, and so if we take and we give, instead of taking and having only 1 to 30 degrees, you make it 1 to 360 degrees. And you subtract the longitude in that way, and then calculate, and then divide that by 12 to get that how many tithis it's gone through. That's how we get the tithi. So it's a subtraction, and that subtraction is connected to. You did your reading. Do you remember? 60 states it nicely.
Oh, no. Subtraction's connected to, I forget. It's been a while since.
Subtraction, it's differentiation. It's connected to
right.
Venus. Venus, the Shukracharya. It sees the difference between them. Where if we look at the yogas, to get the yoga, we add the sun and moon's longitude. To get the tithi, we subtract. To get the yoga, we add. So the yogas are ruled by Jupiter, the guru of the Devas, where the tithis are ruled by Venus, the guru of the Asuras. The differentiation, subtracting versus adding. It's a very nice way to remember the difference in how to calculate each.
Isn't Mercury more of a differentiating planet?
He rules the buddhi, which is the discrimination and differentiation. But when I'm talking about, if we want to just talk in black and white, yin and yang, deva and asura, light and dark, the way of the deva is to see how we're all alike. What in me is the same as in you? How can we get along better? Where do we get along? The job of the asura is to see how we're different. I want my own place. This is mine. This is my this. You can't have this. You're different from me. You're a different color. You're a different religion. You're a different sex. You're a different... all the differences. You're a different hair color. You're different... differentiation is done by asuras. Unity is seen through devas. So that's the level I'm talking about.
So Venus is Shukracharya and Jupiter is?
The Guru Acharya, the Deva Acharya. He's the guru of the Devas. Venus is the guru of the Asuras. Brihaspati. Yeah. Devacharya. Devacharya. So that's our first connection with Venus there in the Tithi. Now the Tithi is connected to the water element. Again, water is connected to Venus. See, strong, all this Venus stuff coming up with the Tithi. And Tithi is, Venus is connected to Lakshmi. Lakshmi shows prosperity. Venus is also connected to, in Prashna, does anybody know what amount of time Venus rules in Prashna?
The medium amount of time?
Particular
Short.
times, like Moon rules a day, Mars rules a week, Venus rules
Month?
Paksha,
Oh, Paksha,
half a month, you know, it's 15 Tithis. So there's again this connection between Venus and the Tithis. Saturn rules the year, Sun rules half a year, Mercury rules a ritu, a season, 2-month period, and Jupiter rules the month. So Venus is that half month, you know, differentiating the ascending, the waxing moon from the waning moon, where Jupiter sees them as one moon.
What's his Mars?
Mars, the week. And when we look in the Pañcāṅga, he rules the fire element, the day. So the week is made of the days. The Paksha is made of the Tithis.
Say what was Saturn again?
Saturn's a year.
Moon was?
Moon's a day.
Day.
See, when this is used in Prashna, like let's say Gail, you're like, how soon am I going to get my car?
Right.
And we did a Prashna. And it's the moon is in Lagna. Then we look at how many Navamshas has the moon crossed. If it's gone through 3 Navamshas, 3 days you'll have a car. If it's gone through 5 Navamshas, 5 days you'll have a car. If it's Saturn there and you say, how many days am I going to have a car? Saturn's gone through 3 Navamshas. I'll say, it's going to be 3 years before you get that car. Like that, you know. So this is how this is used in Prashna.
When you say how many Navamsas pass, does it mean from the sun?
From Lagna wise.
Lagna,
You just look,
Got it, okay.
you know, it's in that sign. So if Moon was there, and Moon was 12 degrees, how many Navamshas has it gone? 320 is 1, 640 is 2, 10. So in this way, so yeah.
Did you say Sun was half a year or a whole year?
He's a year. Sun is half a year. Sun's Ayana. Uttara, the northern course, and the Dakshina, the southern course.
Do you look at Rahu and Ketu?
No. Yeah. They're in the Prashna, there's a problem. You gotta fix something before it's gonna come. Okay. So Tithi is connected to the Paksha. You see the relationship between Venus, the Tithi, and the Paksha. Everybody seeing how this the integration of these?
So easy.
Okay. So Tithi. Tithi, because it's connected to Venus and it's connected to water. What do we look at? Without looking back at the notes. Venus, water.
Tides?
Tides. What are the tides showing?
They're more showing how the moon's waxing away. No, the moon's...
What's the moon? What is the moon inside of us?
Mind.
A mind.
The mind. What part of the mind? The water, the Venus.
Emotions.
Emotions.
Love.
Love.
Mood.
Venus. Venus, water, love, moods, emotions, desires, passions. What we want.
Isn't Tithi related to our desire to incarnate, like on some level?
Yeah, it's connected to that as well. So do you see how we're getting that from the Tithi? I want you to understand, I want you to be able to derive it yourself so you can understand the thinking, the logic. Are you getting that, Pam? Sort of. But do you see how Venus is connected? Venus and the water element. It's the water element which is connected to Venus. So if no one had ever told you, if you've never heard of a Tithi, and you had to say, well, what's this thing that's connected to the water element in Venus? What's it mean? What are you going to say it's going to have importance in your life? What's Venus have importance in your life? Comforts. We desire comfort, yeah? We desire love.
But how do we...
We desire Venus.
Somebody's born on a Tithi, ex-Tithi, and then we see the Tithi...
Okay, so the Tithis have lords. Now, an easy way to remember these lords. See if anybody can see the scheme, how that works. Really easy.
Related to the days of the week.
Days of the
Yeah,
week, it's
days of
that
the week.
simple. First Tithi is ruled by Sunday. Second Tithi is ruled by Moon. Third Tithi is ruled by Mars. That's simple. Very easy to remember.
So we look at the lot of the Tithi and its placement in the chart.
We see how well it's placed in the chart. If it's not well placed, then that means there's going to be problems in love and desires and relationship.
And then what do you do with the information then? Do you help with the remedy on that?
So we look, we see that's the problem, and then we start looking. Because this is the thing. Everybody has combinations that, could show disease. Everybody has Saturn somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Why isn't that Saturn making a person sick? Everybody has some malefic or some negative thing happening to their Venus. It's impossible. There's more malefics than benefics. So there has to be something malefic happening to your Venus. Something, like we go through all the Vargas, we have to find something. But what's going to make that be a relationship problem versus not a relationship problem? So with this is showing us that the water element's a little bit weak. So that love relationships, there's going to be more problems there. So we go right to it and we can see that that's where there's going to be more prominence of relationship issues.
Based on what? I'm sorry, I missed something. What shows that? What's weak? Which Tithi?
You see how they have Graha lords
Yes.
based on the days of the week? You see how the days of the order of the weekdays? And we see where that order of the weekdays comes from.
Right.
So it's not just the order of the weekdays now. Now it's a real repetitive, it's a cycle of the speed of the planets, and it has this, the speed of the planets moving, it's a vibration out there in the universe, this order.
Okay.
So each of those have that order. So what's your Tithi?
Number 2.
You're born on the second Tithi.
Mm-hmm.
So the Lord is?
Moon.
So where's Moon in your chart?
Gemini.
Gemini. And how's it placed?
Not very good. It's in the 12th.
So it's in the 12th, but what, besides being in the 12th, what makes it not good?
It's aspected by Saturn.
It's aspected by Saturn. So it's slightly weak.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to show some, it'll be some problems in the relationship, but not too bad. It's not that bad. There'll be some sadness in relationship, things of that nature.
And you say that based on the Tithi being the second Tithi? Or
Because you're born in the
the
second Tithi and it's connected to the moon. So that's just giving us an idea of what the water element was like at the time we were born.
So that was...
If we want to know, if let's say somebody is they're going to have an engagement party, we want to make sure that there's lots of love there, right? So we want to make sure they have a good Tithi. So when somebody's getting married, let's say they're getting married, let's see, Mars right now, let's look at, Mars is in Dhanishta, is that? Mars is in,
Mars is in Barna, isn't
right now.
it?
Is he?
Aries.
It's in Aries.
He's in Aries.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I'm thinking Moon the other day.
It's either an Ashwini or Barney.
And so how are we going to go? So let's say somebody is wants to. It's Tritya, and their engagement party's on Tritya, the third Tithi. Okay, so we see that Mars is ruled by that. Now, would we more likely put Mars in? How can I say? Because Mars gets to be a tough planet, so we wouldn't even really want to play with Tritya too much for a marriage. Let's move to a Dashami. So we have Moon. That's going to be a better pick for marriage. Better example for getting a good marriage, because we wouldn't even want them to get married unless they really wanted to. Then it would be difficult because. So we want to put the Moon. Let's see if we can find the Moon in the 4th house. Let's see if we can get the Moon in the 1st. Let's see if we can get the Moon somewhere where the Moon's really happy in the chart. That's going to make the water element really strong at the time that they're getting married. So do you see how we're using that in Muhurta? And so in the same way, just like that marriage is born, look at our life. How are we born? We want to make sure that Lord is well placed. If not, then it's going to just show some weakness in the water element relative to our time. It's considered a flaw in time. Just like something that wasn't made right and you can see the flaw in it, we're looking at time. What's the flaw in time? Or what's the beauty in time? Did everybody got that? Do you see? And the Vara is the same way. You're going for the job on the right Vara. But then we're looking at job. Do you see how I said job when I started talking about Vara, and I'm talking about marriage when I'm talking about Tithi? So you want to make sure the person is married on a good day too, but what are you looking at first? We got to use everything. But which one is going to be more important? And different ones are going to be more important for different occasions.
So since this is love and Venus for marriage,
And Tithi is going to be important.
really more important
Yeah.
than Vara.
Yeah, going to be more important than Vara. But we also have to take Vara into account.
Right.
Because that's going to show the strength, how strong it's going to. So we gotta balance both. But if we have to pick between one or the other, we're going to lean more towards getting a good Tithi. Get a better Tithi and Nakshatra than we would getting a not good Tithi and a better Nakshatra and day.
Yeah, aren't there some nakshatras that are supposed to be like bad nakshatras?
For everything.
Like if you're born on a certain nakshatra, there's some that are considered like have problems. Right?
Have problems. Everything
I was
has
reading
everything has some problems.
I think it was the 1st or 9th or something. And yeah, they're just like inherently bad.
There's no nakshatra that's inherently bad.
And she's saying
I mean,
if you're
tithis.
Tithis. It depends.
So every Tithi is good for something,
Every
every
Tithi-
Tithi is bad for something.
Just like the Nakshatras. And let's see, let's even go ahead a little bit more. Go to the bottom of the next page. Right here, Varamahira in Brihat Samhita. This book sitting right there in front of Mary. Right there. Varahamihira, he gives these deities. And he says, just like the Nakshatras are ruled by these deities, so the Tithis are ruled by these deities. And the same things that are good for these deities, and the Nakshatras are good for these deities to the Tithis. Same rules, he says.
So for example, Navami, the deity is Naga.
Yeah.
So that's supposed to be a pretty, intense.
So it's good day. It's good to, clean the house. It's good to, if, you have some problems with somebody, like some business agreements weren't made 100% right and you got to go yell at them on that day. If you got to, do such things. It's good for that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, great for going out, raking the yard. Great for, you want to do some research into something you don't understand? Good day for it. You want to get married? I'd be careful. Yeah. So the Tithis, they're connected just in the same way. So these deities are very important to understand. The deities are also connected to the Karanas as well. So everybody see how and why, everybody getting a good idea of the Panchāṅga. It's becoming alive, yes? Okay, so I have a few things here that I start playing with the Tithis. So we see how we use it in a natal chart. We see how we use it in Muhurta. It's an important thing that we understand that for each limb of the Panchāṅga, so we can use it in both Muhurta and in our natal chart. Now here, the Tithis are divided into Nanja, Bhadra, Jaya, Rikta, and Purna. And those are again divided into the 5 elements. It's the top of the page with the deities. The 15 Tithis are also broken down into 5 groups below. Everybody see that? Okay. So this again, so do you see everything is the 5 elements interacting within the 5 elements? Now, for example, we have the example I use. Mars rules the 3rd and 11th Tithi, correct? So the 3rd Tithi, it's Jaya. It's connected to Agni. And the 11th Tithi is Nanda. It's connected to water. And hold on a second. This chart. Give me a second. I don't know if that chart's 100% correct. As I said, I typed this up all yesterday afternoon and night, so forgive me if there's some mistakes in it. Doesn't look right to my memory. Gosh, that's what Visti is given, but I'm not sure. Okay, but the basic premise of this is that the different, within these different Tithis, as you see that the Tritya, even though it's ruled by Mars, it's Agni Tattva, where the Ekadashi, it's ruled by a different Tattva, and we see these different Tattvas. Nanda Mars is ruled by fire. Yeah, I'm having Nanda is ruled by fire. Kind of switching them around a little bit, those elements. I'll have to look and check that. But the basic thing is, basically this is differentiating. So we have a planet representing each Tithi. But then each Tithi, even though it's ruled by this, we have 2 Tithis, but each one being ruled by a planet as again falling under a different element. And so that planet is going through one element or it's going through another element. And that's differentiating, it's giving us a double differentiation of that planet. It's like a planet in a different sign. So it's fine-tuning what's the difference between the first Tithi and the ninth Tithi if they're both ruled by the sun. We have one coming from the water element, one coming through the air element. So in this way. Now, with each of these Tithis being connected to a planet, if we want to remove this, the Tithis are used, if you notice, all the festivals in India are based on Tithis. Has everybody noticed that? Mm-hmm. And if you look in Judaism and Islam, do they basically go by Tithi as well, yeah? They go by lunar day?
They go by lunar day.
Lunar day, that's Tithi. Yeah. If you're going by the moon, then you're going by Tithi. So both the Jews, the Muslims, and the Hindus are all using I think the Chinese go by lunar day as well for their calendar, and no. They're all numerological.
But they do have their own Panchāṅga, so Panchāṅga type.
Yeah, but I know they're very numerological with their, it's not astronomical, and it used to be astronomical, but it's evolved into a numerology. But the main thing is we're using the Tithi because that's showing the desire. We're going with what is the desires on that day. What day can we fully manifest the desire to be so strong to overcome certain things? Which day is the mind going to be best able to celebrate this reality? It's festivals. Why do we use a form of the deity? We use a form of the deity for us, for our own mind. The deity doesn't need that form. It's our mind that needs that form. So the festivals for the various deities, they're based on our minds, our desires. For working with our own inner nature. And with these, I was talking to Mary earlier today, and she wanted to do more fasting. And I said, let's just wait, and we'll talk about that. So if we wanted to remove Rahu from our life, we want to purify some of Rahu, which area, which day, which Tithi would be best to fast on? Ashtami and Amavasya. Do you see that? So we can strengthen planets by fasting on their Tithi. We can purify their desire, purify how that planet. And when we look at Rahu, we really want Rahu to have good desires, don't we? When we look at Mars, we really want, the major fasting days that are used in Hinduism are, when we come to Tithi, are basically Ashtami, Ekadashi, Amavasya, and Purnima. The main fasting days are Ashtami, Ekadashi, Purnima, and Amavasya. They're main fasting days. And let's just look at that.
Full moon and new moon, and then
Ashtami and Ekadashi, 8 and 11. And so when we look at Ashtami, Ashtami is ruled by Rahu. New moon's ruled by Rahu. When we look at Ekadashi, it's ruled by Mars. When we look at full moon, it's ruled by Saturn. So all malefics. So that Tithi is being fasted on to remove the negative desires of these malefics.
At my place, we fast on
Chaturthi.
That's what we call Ganesh Chaturthi.
Yeah.
I see here
Regularly. Yeah.
Regularly.
Uh-huh.
Not me, but my parents do. And it's deities Yama.
Uh-huh.
I see now why.
It's Yama, but do you also see what graha is ruling it?
Mercury.
And what is Ganesh? Why do they have children worship Ganesh?
For knowledge?
To be better students.
Yeah.
But my parents too.
Yeah.
They do it always on Ganesh Chaturthi.
Yeah. But it's supposed to increase your intellect. It's supposed to make you smarter. Ganesh is supposed to be like one of the smartest deities. So he's supposed to have all knowledge.
Is the fasting always between sunset and sunrise and sunset? Generally.